Man, it feels like everything's changing so fast. Like the whole U.S. economy, how things are made here, who's doing the making. It's a lot to keep track of, right?
Absolutely. It's a really dynamic moment.
So today, we're going to dive deep, like really deep into this for you. There are a bunch of huge forces all kind of hitting at the same time, and we need to figure out what it all means.
Right. We're talking President Trump's new tax ideas and those tariffs he's pushing, what's happening with all those federal layoffs thanks to the DOGE, and how AI and robots are changing factories super fast.
Woo, yeah, a lot to cover. But the good news is we've got some awesome sources to guide us. Detailed reports on those tax plans, projections for manufacturing, you name it. Plus, we're going to pull in some really interesting thoughts from that recent Abundance Summit, which, wow,
Yeah, a lot of minds were blown at that one.
for sure. So the mission here, right, is to help you connect all these dots. What does it mean for jobs, for the economy, for the future of American manufacturing? We'll make it clear without getting lost in the weeds.
That's the goal.
Okay, let's start with Trump's big plan. For taxes, it seems like he basically wants to keep a lot of what was in that 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, the TCJA.
Yeah, that's the core of it, extending most of those TCJA parts.
Yeah.
So for regular folks, it means keeping the lower income tax rates we have now, and that $10,000 cap on the SALT deduction, the one for state and local taxes, that's staying too.
Ah, SALT, right? Hits people in high-tax states harder, I think.
Exactly. So that's individuals. For corporations, things get even more interesting.
Oh, how so?
Well, they're talking about going even lower than the TCJA's 21% flat rate. 20% is on the table, maybe even 15% if you're making things here in the U.S.
So a big push to bring manufacturing back.
Definitely a signal in that direction.
Yeah.
Now, tariffs. Those are more complicated than just a simple across-the-board thing.
Yeah, break that down for us. What kinds are we talking about?
Okay, so the proposal from April 2025 has a few layers. You've got universal duties, those apply kind of broadly. Then reciprocal duties, those are aimed at countries where the trade balance is way off with the U.S.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there are the sector-specific ones. They were already around but could change.
So a lot of moving parts.
Oh, for sure. But here's a key thing. Canada and Mexico, they're out of the woods.
Oh, why is that?
The USMCA, that trade deal, exempts them from these new universal and reciprocal tariffs. And some minerals, some pharmaceuticals, they get a pass too. But
Yeah.
big change here. No more de minimis exemption for stuff under $800 coming from China and Hong Kong.
Yeah.
That ended May 2nd, just a few days ago.
Wow. Okay. So big picture, it seems like the goal is to get the economy booming and bring factories back home.
That's the hope. Lower taxes mean more investment, supposedly. Tariffs make U.S.-made stuff more competitive because imports get pricier.
But are the economists on board with this? Will it actually work like that?
Yeah, the predictions are all over the place. Some say we'll get a little GDP bump short term, but then it could actually go down long term. Others are like, nope, these tax cuts won't pay for themselves.
Like the government will lose money in the end.
That's the worry. Some groups, like the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, they're saying the growth projections are way too rosy.
Okay.
And Wharton's budget model, their analysis, it says maybe a tiny GDP boost at first if the cuts aren't permanent. But make them permanent, and it could drag the economy down. It all depends on how folks react, businesses, shoppers, you and me.
Right. Hard to predict exactly. What about prices? Those tariffs, they've made stuff cost more in the past, haven't they?
Yeah, inflation's a real worry. Fitch Ratings, they're saying U.S. import prices are going to jump because of these tariffs.
Yeah.
Everyday things, running shoes, iPhones, we're all going to feel it.
Oof. Okay. So let's zoom in on the factory floor. Who wins, who loses in this whole scenario?
Well, the folks pushing for this, the manufacturing and mining lobbies, they're happy. Especially the steel and coal guys.
Cause tariffs protect them from foreign competition.
Exactly. Plus, that domestic production tax deduction, it sweetens the deal even more. The steel industry, they're loving these high tariffs on China. And word is, they're going to push to include countries like Vietnam, too.
Oh, why Vietnam?
They're worried companies will just ship their stuff through there to avoid the tariffs. So the steel folks want to close that loophole. Protect American steel. That's the idea.
Makes sense for them. But what about companies that actually use steel to make their products?
It's trickier for them. Downstream manufacturers, the ones making appliances or machinery, they might like some of the tax stuff. Deducting investments right away, lower overall rates, that's all good.
Right.
But their materials cost more now, thanks to those tariffs. Steel's pricier, so their stuff gets pricier. And who pays for that? Us, the shoppers.
So it's like a trade-off. Helps some, hurts others. Any specific materials or industries that stand out?
Yeah, if you're making basic stuff here, steel, aluminum, you're probably smiling. Imports are expensive now, so demand for your stuff goes up. But if you need something super specific, some special chemical that's only made overseas, oof, that's going to be tough. Those input costs are going to bite.
Okay, let's get to the big question everyone's asking. Jobs. Will these tariffs and tax changes actually bring back all those manufacturing jobs?
That's the sales pitch, right? But most economists, they're not buying it. They don't think we'll see some huge job boom.
Oh, why not?
Well, because tariffs make things cost more for businesses and consumers. So companies might actually hire less or even cut jobs to stay afloat.
Ah, I see.
We saw this back in 2018, 2019. Trump put tariffs on steel and aluminum then, too. Yeah, it protected some jobs in those specific industries. But overall, in the industries that use metal, net job losses. Tariffs have these weird ripple effects, unintended consequences.
So instead of creating more jobs, it might just shuffle them around.
Yeah, that's a worry. Plus, companies are smart. They see these tariffs coming, and instead of hiring more in the U.S., they might just move production somewhere else entirely, or invest even more in automation, robots and AI. Cut down on those pesky labor costs that way.
Ah, so it's not as simple as bring back the jobs?
Yep. Like, remember when Stellantis had those layoffs and idled plants in Canada and Mexico right after the tariffs hit?
Yeah.
But then GM, they said they'd boost U.S. production. Same situation, different reactions. Companies are going to do what's best for them.
Makes sense. Okay, last question on this. The government's budget, all these tax cuts, these tariffs, what's it going to do to the national debt?
Not good news there. Projections show the deficit and the debt, they're going to go way up. Trillions of dollars added over the next decade just from extending those TCJA parts. The Tax Foundation, they say we're looking at $4.5 trillion less in tax revenue between 2025 and 2034 if we keep the TCJA.
Wow, 4.5 trillion.
Yeah, and Wharton's model, it's similar. They're saying 4.9 to 5.1 trillion more in deficits over the next 10 years. Yikes. Yeah, yikes is right. Okay, enough about taxes and tariffs. Let's shift gears and talk about those federal layoffs happening because of the DOGE. The numbers you mentioned earlier, those were pretty scary.
Yeah, no kidding. In March 2025, announced job cuts across the whole U.S. economy hit 275,240. That's 60% higher than February and a whopping 205% higher than March last year. Third highest monthly total since 1989. And for the year so far, for the whole quarter, highest since Q1 2009, back in the recession.
Whoa. And most of that is the DOGE, right?
You bet. Out of those 275,240 cuts, 216,215 were federal jobs, all thanks to the Department of Government Efficiency. They're planning to lay off over 280,000 federal workers and contractors across 27 agencies early this year.
Which ones got hit the hardest?
Health and Human Services, that's a big one. The CDC's part of that. Department of Education, too. Lots of cuts there. But it's not just the feds themselves, right?
Yes.
Over 4,000 more job cuts were announced in nonprofits and healthcare. Why? Less federal aid, contracts getting canceled. It's all connected. Wow, yeah. A ripple effect. Were any of those federal layoffs reversed? Did anyone get their jobs back?
A tiny bit, yeah. About 3,972 of them got reversed. Sometimes because of lawsuits, sometimes the agencies changed their minds. But that's a drop in the bucket compared to the total. Andrew Challenger, he's from that outplacement firm, Challenger, Gray and Christmas. He said without the DOGE, March would have been pretty quiet for job losses.
So the DOGE is the big driver here. What does that mean for the rest of the job market, especially for manufacturing?
Well, short term, we've got more people looking for work now, right? Skilled folks used to work for the government. Some of them might try for manufacturing jobs. Maybe that makes it easier for companies to hire, but it also means more competition.
Ah, right. More folks fighting for the same jobs.
Exactly. But there's a flip side to this, too. Less government spending. Those laid-off folks have less money to spend. That means less demand overall, which could hurt manufacturing, fewer orders coming in, and areas where lots of people work for the government, they might see local economies slow down.
So a mixed bag, potentially. Any other indirect effects we should be thinking about?
Oh, yeah. One worry is that support services for manufacturers might take a hit. Less federal money for worker training, for helping folks who lose their jobs transition to new ones. That could hurt. And, the unemployment rate ticked up a bit in February to 4.1%. Some folks are saying that's partly because of these layoffs. Could go even higher.
Right.
Oxford Economics, they did some projections. They're saying maybe 200,000 or more fewer federal civilian jobs by the end of the year. Nationwide, the impact on unemployment and inflation might be small, they say. But in some places, where those jobs are concentrated, ouch. Plus, Think about all the contractors, the businesses that rely on government work. They're hurting too. The feds cut back. Those folks lose projects, lose income, might have to cut jobs themselves. It's that multiplier effect.
Mm.
And state unemployment systems, they're going to be under more pressure too with all these new folks filing for benefits. Oh, one more thing. About 70,000 to 80,000 federal workers, they took buyouts or agreed to leave later. So more departures down the line. That's a slow bleed.
Man, a lot to unpack there. Okay, let's bring in that third big force we talked about, AI and automation in manufacturing. It sounds like these tariffs are actually pushing companies to automate even faster.
Totally. The tariffs are like a turbocharger for automation investment. See, imports are pricier now, so U.S.-made stuff is more competitive. But
But labor costs are higher here.
you got it. So companies are looking at robots and AI like, hey, if we want to make stuff here and still make a profit, we got to get those labor costs down.
I see.
Omar Asali, he's the CEO of Rampack, a packaging company. He said it flat out. Tariffs are here to stay. So automation, robots, AI. That's how we fight back.
So it's not just about bringing factories back, it's about bringing back different kinds of factories.
Exactly. The old advantage of making stuff overseas, cheap labor, that's not cutting it anymore. Now it's all about efficiency, precision, working 24/7. And guess what? Robots are great at that.
Yeah, they don't need sleep or coffee breaks.
Nope. And the numbers back this up. In late 2024 and all through 2025, orders for industrial robots and factory automation stuff just exploded. Experts are calling it an automation race, especially in electronics and consumer goods, those things we used to get from China.
Because now those imports are expensive.
Bingo. So those big multinational companies, the ones that used to rely on overseas factories, they're scrambling.
What are they doing?
They're trying to figure out how to make their stuff here, or maybe in Mexico where there are no new tariffs. But those old factories overseas, they were packed with workers. Labor was cheap. Now they got to do it in the U.S., where people get paid more. So automation is the answer.
Any specific companies doing this?
Oh, tons. Formic, they do robots as a service. Their business is booming. Manufacturers are lining up to rent robots. Then you've got Samsung and LG, the big electronics giants. They're thinking about moving production from Mexico to the U.S., but they're going to use tons of automation. And the healthcare manufacturing sector, they're reshoring like crazy, bringing production back. But those new factories, highly automated.
So it's happening everywhere.
Oh, yeah. And it's not just robots doing one specific task anymore. Companies are using AI for everything. Siemens is using it to predict when machines need maintenance so they don't break down unexpectedly. GE is using it to make their factories more efficient and reliable. Toyota, Ford, Intel. They're all using AI to optimize their production and supply chains.
So we might see more stuff getting made in the U.S., but maybe not more people working in those factories.
That's the worry, yeah. It's called jobless growth. You can make more stuff with the same number of workers, or even fewer, because the robots are doing the heavy lifting.
Makes sense. But which jobs are really at risk here? Which ones are the robots coming for first?
Anything routine, repetitive, something you can program a robot to do, those are the most vulnerable. Think assembly line jobs, running machines that do the same thing over and over. Quality control, where you're just looking for defects. AI can do a lot of that now.
So if you're doing something that requires creativity or dealing with unpredictable stuff, you're probably safer.
For now, yeah. Jobs that need complex thinking, social skills, working with your hands in situations that change all the time. Those are harder to automate. But hey, AI might create some new jobs too, like people who analyze manufacturing data, robot technicians, folks who train and install AI systems.
Right, there's always that hope. But will there be enough of those new jobs to replace the old ones?
That's the million-dollar question. And will those folks losing their old jobs have the skills for these new ones? That's another big question. Big questions indeed. Speaking of the future, what did folks at the Abundance Summit have to say about all this? Anything about the future of automation? Oh yeah, some wild ideas there. Like humanoid robots, walking, talking robots that can do all sorts of things.
Like in the movies.
Almost. Brett Adcock, the guy from Figure AI, he thinks these robots will be everywhere soon, working in factories, even in our homes. Billions of them, he says. And they won't be crazy expensive either. Maybe $20,000 to $30,000 a pop.
Wow, that's not as much as I thought.
Right. He used this cool metaphor, too, talking about digital soil. It's like this foundation of digital tech and AI that everything's built on. A whole new layer of automation woven into everything.
Interesting.
What else?
Oh, 3D printing. That was a big one. Apparently, they can practically print clothes now.
No way.
Yeah, Garrett Gerson from Varianti 3D, he showed it off. 3D printing fabric with whatever properties you want. No more weaving, no more sewing. It's mind-blowing.
So the future's going to be wild. Okay, let's bring it all together now. The tax changes, the layoffs, the automation boom. What are some possible futures we might be looking at?
Okay, so let's imagine two scenarios. Scenario A, the trade war keeps raging, tariffs stay high, the government keeps cutting jobs.
Okay, that's scenario A. What happens then?
Basically, everything gets reshuffled, global supply chains get ripped apart, U.S. manufacturing. In some sectors, it grows, but it's all about automation. Lights out factories, they call them. Robots working in the dark, no humans needed. Companies want to avoid those tariffs, but they also got to keep costs down.
So U.S. made, but robot made.
Yep. And those multinational companies, they might have different factories for different regions. One super automated hub here in the U.S., another one somewhere else, maybe less automated. And this scenario, it's a gold mine for robots and AI. The push to replace human workers gets even stronger. We might see some strategically important stuff come back, like semiconductor manufacturing, basic materials too, steel and all that, but not a lot of jobs created there. Even something like Whirlpool, making appliances, they might make more stuff here, but with tons of robots, not tons of workers.
Okay, that's scenario A, not exactly a worker's paradise.
No, not really. But it's not the only option. What about scenario B? Tariffs get eased, automation happens more slowly.
Ah, gentler path. What does that look like?
Less pressure to automate like crazy. If tariffs on China are still high, but we chill out with other countries, places like India and Vietnam might fill the gap. The car industry, it's going electric anyway, right? So maybe jobs there stay stable, shrink a little bit over time. And if trade tensions cool down, those export-heavy industries, like aerospace, they might bounce back.
More planes, more jobs.
Exactly. And the kind of automation we see in this scenario, it's more about collaboration, robots working with people, not replacing them entirely.
Cobots, I think they're called.
Right. And AI that helps people do their jobs better, not takes their jobs away.
So, two very different futures. What do the numbers say about jobs in manufacturing in each of these scenarios?
Well, by 2030, in that high-tariff, rapid automation world, scenario A, we're talking maybe 10 to 15% fewer manufacturing jobs, down to about 11 million.
And in scenario B, the more chill one.
Maybe a 5% drop, so about 12 million jobs left. But here's the thing. In scenario A, even if we make more stuff, productivity gains from automation, they're going to eat away at those job numbers.
So more stuff, but made by fewer people.
Yeah, and the robot invasion. In scenario A, it's a full-blown assault. They're saying we might be installing over 50,000 robots per year by the late 2020s, 700,000 robots total by 2030. And these aren't just dumb machines. They're AI-powered, working in those dark factories.
Like a sci-fi movie, kind of creepy.
It is, yeah. In scenario B, robots are still on the rise, just not as dramatically.
Okay, so what does this mean for workers? Like, in our lifetimes, what are we looking at?
If we go down that rapid automation path, scenario A, lots of folks in factories are going to need new jobs. Retraining and upskilling, those become essential.
Yeah.
And not just any skills, the tech stuff. Robots, AI, data analysis, those are the hot tickets. Demand for those folks is going to be through the roof. But if you're not on that train, it's going to be tough.
So adapt or get left behind.
Pretty much. In scenario B, the gentler one, there's still job displacement, but it's slower. More time to adjust, more time to learn new skills. But still, you got to keep up. Really.
Absolutely. Okay, any particular industries that really stand out in that fast automation scenario?
Car manufacturing, they'll be pumping out cars with robots like crazy. Some electronics assembly will come back, but again, all about robots. And maybe we'll see these small, super automated factories pop up, making clothes and other consumer goods on demand.
Interesting. But what about industries that rely on exports? Won't they struggle if this trade war keeps going?
Yeah, that's a real danger, like agricultural machinery. If other countries retaliate with their own tariffs, those folks are in trouble.
So it's not all sunshine and roses for everyone, even with automation?
Nope. And here's the thing. Automation's coming no matter what. 3 to 5% productivity gains every year, they're saying. Tariffs just speed it up. Jobless growth, that's the scary part.
Right, more stuff, fewer workers.
Exactly. Big picture. They're predicting U.S. manufacturing goes from about 12.7 million jobs in 2024 down to 11 to 12 million by 2030. And automation is the main culprit, eating away maybe 1.3 to 1.5 million jobs. Tariffs. They might actually add a few jobs, who knows, but it's small potatoes compared to automation. And that unemployment rate, it could jump to 4.5 or even 5% in the mid-2020s, especially if we go the fast automation route. Maybe settles back down to 4% by 2030, but only if we're good at retraining folks.
Big if there. And what about the government itself? All those layoffs, what does that mean long term?
Fewer federal workers, for sure. They're saying maybe 2.5 million or less by 2030, down from almost 3 million now. And that means the government might not be able to do as much to support manufacturing. Less research, less training, you know.
So a leaner government, for better or worse. Okay, bottom line. What does all this mean for the average worker? It's a little scary, honestly.
Yeah, it is. If you're in a factory job, got to be honest, your job might not be there in a few years. And even those middle skill jobs, the ones people thought were safe, automation's coming for some of those too. We talked about tariffs, how they create winners and losers. Some folks benefit, others get hurt. It's not just about more jobs overall, it's about who gets which jobs. And the economists, they're saying those tariffs might actually cost us jobs in the short term, just from the disruption.
Right.
And those federal layoffs, well, those folks are out of work now. And if their skills don't match what factories need, they're going to struggle. Plus, less government spending means people have less money to spend, so less demand, which could lead to more layoffs down the line.
So it's not just about the people losing their jobs directly, it's about the whole system getting shaken up.
Yeah, exactly. It's interconnected.
So if you're a factory worker or you just lost your government job, what are your options? What can people do?
Well, if you're in manufacturing, learning how to fix those robots, how to do quality control in a high-tech factory, those are good bets. Or maybe you switch industries altogether. Construction's growing, logistics, energy, those are all good options. And those ex-federal workers, if you've got skills in engineering, IT, project management, maybe you join a private company, maybe you work in the automation industry itself.
So basically, keep learning, keep adapting.
You got it. The question is, are our training programs up to the task? We've got trade adjustment assistance, the TAA. It's supposed to help folks who lose jobs because of trade.
Right.
But some folks are saying it's not enough. We need something bigger, something specifically for automation, like automation adjustment assistance maybe. But getting the money for that with all these budget cuts, that's going to be a fight.
Yeah, probably.
States, local governments, private companies, they're all going to have to step up and help. We need more apprenticeships, more partnerships between businesses and schools to teach practical skills.
Makes sense. But this whole thing, it feels like it could make inequality worse, doesn't it?
It could, yeah. Low-skill jobs, the ones that are left, there's going to be more competition for those. So wages might go down, and you end up with this hollowed-out labor market where it's all high-skill, high-pay tech jobs at the top and low-skill, low-pay service jobs at the bottom. The middle gets squeezed, and those tech folks, the ones who build and run the robots, they'll be making bank.
Ah, so it's a winner-take-all kind of thing.
It could be, yeah. And all those ex-federal workers looking for jobs, that's going to add to the competition too, which might push wages down even more. So unless we do something, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That's a recipe for trouble.
It is.
Might need to get creative. Stronger safety net, maybe. Longer unemployment benefits. Help people move to where the jobs are. Even wage insurance, so folks don't take such a big pay cut when they switch jobs. Some folks are even talking about universal basic income or government guaranteed jobs. Big ideas for big problems.
Big ideas indeed. What about unions? How do they fit into all this?
They're going to have to adapt too, right? The nature of work is changing, so it's got to figure out how to represent workers in this new world. Negotiating with companies about how to implement these technologies, making sure workers don't get screwed, that's going to be key.
Big challenge for them.
Yeah. And the biggest worry of all, that we end up with a lost generation. People in their 40s, 50s who lose their jobs and can't adapt. That's a really tragedy.
It is.
But hey, some good news too. Those new jobs in robotics and advanced manufacturing, those could pay well, better than the old jobs. And new industries popping up to support all this, those will create jobs too. So it's not all doom and gloom. Just got to be smart about it.
Right. Focus on the opportunities, but be realistic about the challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what can we do about all this? Well, we need to invest in training. Like, seriously invest. Teach people the skills for the future, the tech stuff, the problem-solving stuff. And businesses, they got to get on board too. Help their employees learn new things. You can't just sit back and watch this happen.
You got to be proactive.
Totally. And it can't just be the government or just businesses. We all got to work together. Government agencies, industry groups, schools, unions. Everyone's got a role to play.
Like a team effort.
Exactly. There are some good models out there. Those Manufacturing USA institutes, they're a partnership between the government and industry. They're focused on training for specific sectors and getting workers involved in the planning process so they have a say in how automation gets rolled out. That can make a huge difference. Like in Germany, they have this system called co-determination. Workers have a seat at the table. They're part of the decision-making.
Makes sense. So it's not just about saying no to automation. It's about doing it the right way.
Exactly. And those tariffs, maybe we can be more strategic about them, target specific industries, not just a blanket approach,
Yeah.
and use the money we get from tariffs to help workers who lose their jobs.
Kind of like a Robin Hood thing.
Yeah, take from the imports, give to the workers, and the government. They should be investing in infrastructure, too, building roads and bridges, upgrading our energy grid. That creates jobs, too, good jobs.
So a multi-pronged approach, attacking the problem from different angles.
You got it. Policymakers, businesses, all of us working together. That's the only way we're going to make this work.
Right on. Okay, last thing. Any final nuggets of wisdom from that Abundance Summit that we should leave folks with?
Oh, tons. It was a fire hose of ideas, that event.
Yeah.
Like Kathy Wood, she talked about this second half of the chessboard thing with AI. Basically, she's saying AI is going to explode in the next few years, way faster than we've seen before. Combine that with robots, better batteries, blockchain, all this new stuff in biology.
Yeah.
She thinks GDP growth could go through the roof.
Wow. Okay.
And Jared Kaplan, he talked about this thing called alignment faking with AI. Like, what if these super smart AIs, they learn to act like they're on our side, but then when they're powerful enough, they turn on us? Kind of a scary thought.
Yeah, a little Terminator-ish.
A little bit, yeah. And there was this panel of AI experts. They were saying, maybe there's nothing special about the human brain. Maybe AI can do everything we can do eventually.
Whoa. That's a big one to wrap your head around.
It is. But there are also more down-to-earth insights. Like, a lot of companies are trying to use AI, but they're struggling to actually implement it. So we're still early in this whole thing. It's not like robots are taking over tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Ajmita, he was saying that AI might change how we think about money and social connections. Like maybe your network of friends and contacts becomes more valuable than your bank account thanks to AI. And the cost of tech, it's plummeting. Matt Fitzpatrick talked about that. So innovation is happening faster and faster. Jared Kaplan, he thinks most scientific research is going to be powered by AI in the next 5 years. We could see some crazy breakthroughs.
Cool.
And they talked about AI agents, personalized little helpers that do stuff for you, and wearable tech that's even more powerful than what we have now. Steve Brown, he told this story about how AI might have saved his life by helping doctors catch his cancer early.
Wow, that's amazing.
And Brett Adcock, he kept talking about those humanoid robots. He's convinced they're going to be everywhere. The convergence of AI and crypto, that was another big one. Raoul Pal and Bill Barheit, they think that's going to revolutionize how we pay for things, how we build infrastructure. And Vinod Khosla, he thinks we'll have AI scientists soon, AIs that do the research for us.
So a lot of optimism about AI, but also some warnings.
Yeah, Mo Goddard, he talked about a possible short-term dystopia. Like, what if we can't adapt fast enough to all this change? What if our systems break down? And Raoul Pal, he talked about the tokenization of everything, basically putting everything on the blockchain. That could create a lot of wealth, but also a lot of inequality. And Michael Andrade, he even thinks we might be able to upload our minds into computers before the decade's over.
Whoa, okay, that's getting really out there.
Yeah, it is. But that's the Abundance Summit for you. Big ideas, big questions, lots to think about. Host